the man with the quiet smile. The small roadside diner had seen better days. Its neon sign flickered like an old memory that didn't want to be forgotten. Inside, the smell of burnt coffee and grilled toast clung to the air like dust in sunlight. It was the kind of place people passed through, not the kind they remembered. But for Claire, the 24-year-old waitress with tired eyes and a cracked phone screen, this place was her lifeline. Every day felt the same. The regulars ordered the same food, sat at the same booths, and made the same small talk. Claire moved between tables with a practiced rhythm: smile, take order, refill coffee, repeat. She had learned to fake cheer even when her feet screamed and her heart felt empty. Life hadn't been kind. Her mother had died when Claire was just 16, and her father had vanished into the haze of alcohol and regret not long after. The only photo she had of her mother was creased and faded, tucked inside her journal like a sacred relic. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, something changed. It was raining outside, soft and steady. The kind of rain that made people linger in booths a little longer, hoping to avoid getting wet. The bell over the door jingled, and a man stepped in quietly, almost unnoticed. He wore a black hoodie, jeans, and old boots, nothing flashy. But there was something about him, something calm, something familiar. He sat in the corner booth, where no one else ever sat. Claire walked over, holding her notepad, her pen already, halfway to the page. "Hi there, can I get you something to drink while you look at the menu?" He looked up, and the moment their eyes met, Claire felt something strange in her chest. Not romantic, not magical, just a jolt, like the past whispering through the rain. He smiled. "Coffee, please. Black." His voice was gentle, low, and kind. Claire nodded, walking back to the counter, trying to place where she had seen him before. His face stirred something in her memory, like a song she couldn't quite remember the lyrics to. When she returned with the coffee, he gave her a quiet thank you and stared out the window. He didn't take out his phone or ask for the Wi-Fi password. He just sat, sipping the hot drink slowly, as if time didn't rush him like it rushed everyone else. Claire watched him from behind the counter, curiosity gnawing at her. She leaned toward Jack, the cook, and whispered, "You know who that is?" Jack squinted from the kitchen window. "No idea. Why? He bothering you?" "No. Just, he looks familiar." The man stayed for an hour. He ordered nothing else. Just sat, thinking, watching, and sometimes smiling at the rain. Finally, he reached for his wallet to leave a tip, and that was when it happened. Claire, wiping down the booth next to his, glanced over. The wallet had opened wider than he'd meant. Inside, tucked into a clear sleeve, was a photo of Claire's mother. She froze. The rag dropped from her hand. The man noticed her expression and followed her gaze. Slowly, he closed the wallet. But it was too late. Claire whispered, her voice shaky. Where did you get that photo?" His eyes softened. He didn't look surprised. He looked sad. "I've had it for a long time," he said. Claire stared at him, her throat dry, her thoughts racing. "That's my mom. That photo, it's the only one we ever had framed. It was taken at my grandma's farm. I lost the original when we moved. How do you have it?" The man looked down at his hands. He sighed, then met her gaze again. "You look just like her." Claire stepped back. She felt like the floor was tilting beneath her. "Who are you?" she asked. He paused. "My name is Keanu," he said quietly. The name hit her like a stone. Now she understood why he seemed familiar. She had seen him in movies, on posters. But he looked older now, more tired, more real. But none of that mattered compared to the photo in his wallet. Claire sat down in the booth across from him, ignoring, the two customers waving for refills. "Why do you have her photo? Were you friends?" Keanu nodded. We met many years ago, before you were born. He didn't offer more, and Claire could feel the wall between them. But now she wasn't just curious. She was desperate. She died when I was 16, Claire said, her voice trembling. I never got to ask her much about her past. She never talked about her younger years. It was like there was a whole life she left behind. Keanu's eyes were distant now, lost in the rain. She had her reasons. Claire leaned forward. Please, I need to know. How do you know her? Why do you have her photo? Did she mean something to you? He looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly, he reached into his wallet again. He pulled out the photo and placed it between them. Her name was Amelia, he said. She saved my life. Claire stared at the photo, her fingers trembling as they hovered over it. She didn't dare touch it. What do you mean? She whispered. Keanu's lips curled into a small, sad smile. It's a long story. Claire nodded, eyes wide, heart racing. I've got time. He looked around the diner, then back at her. Maybe it's time someone heard it. And just like that, the rain outside seemed to hush. The world leaned in. Keanu took a deep breath. It started before I ever became famous, he began. Before anyone cared who I was. I was just a scared kid in a city that didn't care. Claire didn't move. She barely breathed. Whatever was coming next. She could feel it in her bones. It was going to change everything, and it had something to do with the mother she thought she knew, but maybe never really did. The night the lights went out, the rain outside grew heavier as Keanu's voice softened, like a whisper carried through time. Claire leaned in closer, her fingers brushing the photo he had placed between them. It felt like the past was no longer buried. It was just waiting for the right moment to rise, and that moment had come. Keanu looked down at his coffee, as if the swirling liquid held the memories he was about to unfold. It was years ago, he began. Before the cameras, before the fame, before I even knew who I was supposed to become. I was just 17, lost, angry, and cold. Claire watched him closely. The calm movie star she thought she knew was gone. In his place sat a young man trapped in old memories, haunted by something he had never fully let go. I'd been kicked, out of the shelter again, he said. Too many fights, too many nights sleeping under bridges. I thought I was tough, but truth is, I was broken, starving, angry at a world that didn't care if I lived or died. He paused, his fingers tapping gently on the table. Then one night, the power went out across half the city. A storm had knocked out the grid. Everything went black. No lights, no noise, just the sound of rain and wind. I remember walking the empty streets, soaked to the bone. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I was ready to give up. Honestly, I wanted to disappear. Claire's throat tightened. She had known hunger. She had known silence. But hearing it from him, Keanu Reeves, was something else. He wasn't just a star. He had been a ghost in the dark, like so many people she passed by every day. I saw a small house with a candle flickering in the window, he continued. I don't know what made me stop. Maybe it was the light. Maybe it was hope. But I knocked. I didn't expect anyone to answer. Who opens their door to strangers in the dark? His eyes turned distant, a small smile flickering on his lips. But she did. Your mother opened the door. Claire gasped quietly. She didn't ask questions, he said. She looked at me for a long second, wet, shivering, half mad. And then she stepped aside and said, You look like you need a warm meal more than I need a quiet evening. He let out a soft breath, the memory warming his voice. She gave me soup, dry clothes, let me sit by her little stove. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't ask about my past. She just treated me like a human being. I can't explain how much that meant back then. Claire blinked rapidly, trying to hold back tears. Her mother had always been kind, always had a soft place in her heart for those in need. Claire had seen it in small ways, giving away coats, paying for groceries when others couldn't. But she had never known this story. I stayed one night, then two. She let me sleep on the couch, said it was nothing, just temporary. But I think she knew I didn't have anywhere else to go. Keanu's voice cracked slightly, but he kept going. We talked. Not much, at first. I didn't trust anyone. But she had a way of making silence feel safe. Over time, she started telling me about her dreams, said she used to sing in a band, before life pulled her in a different direction. Said she had a daughter she hadn't seen in years. Claire's heart stopped. What? She whispered. A daughter. Keanu nodded. She didn't say much. Just that she had to leave her behind. That it was the hardest thing she'd ever done. But she believed it was the only way to protect her. Claire shook her head. That can't be. My mom raised me. She was always there. Keanu looked at her gently. Maybe, or maybe there's more to her story than you know. The rain outside drummed against the windows now, a soft rhythm to the growing storm inside Claire's chest. She felt like the floor had been pulled out from under her. What else did she say? Claire asked, her voice shaky. Not much, Keanu said. She was private, but I could tell there was pain in her past. She never let it define her, though. She smiled. She encouraged me, told me I could still change my path. She believed in me when no one else did. He picked up the photo again, staring at it. On the third night, I left. I didn't want to overstay. I thought I'd find work, come back to thank her. But life moved fast. I ended up in another city. Then the acting started. Then everything else. He paused. I never saw her again. Claire bit her lip hard, trying not to cry. The idea of her mother sitting by that same window, waiting for a thank you that never came, broke something inside her. I kept the photo, he said, gently sliding it back toward her. It reminded me of who I was before the world knew my name, of the woman who reminded me that I mattered. And when fame became too loud, that photo helped me stay quiet on the inside. They sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Claire asked, "Why didn't you try to find her?" Keanu's face fell. I did, but I only knew her first name, no address, no phone. And then, the world swept me up. Claire wiped her eyes with her sleeve. She would have wanted to see you again. She would have been proud. Keanu nodded. And she would have been proud of you too. Claire looked at the photo again, now trembling in her hands. She had always thought she knew her mother. But this changed everything. Her mother had saved a stranger once, a stranger who had gone on to become one of the most beloved names in the world. She gave you a second chance, Claire said. She gave me more than that, Keanu replied. She gave me direction. Then he leaned forward, voice quieter. But there's something else. Claire looked up sharply. What? Before I left, she gave me something. A sealed envelope. She told me not to open it unless I found her daughter one day. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small, worn envelope. I think it's time. Claire stared at it, her heart pounding like thunder. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. The paper was aged, yellowed around the edges. On the front, written in soft ink, were the words, "To my Claire, if you're ever found." And just before she could tear it open, the diner door slammed open. A man in a soaked coat stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room. Then he saw Keanu, and his eyes darkened. "You," the man growled. Keanu stiffened. Claire stood frozen, envelope in hand, past colliding with present in a flash of lightning. Who was this stranger? What had Keanu not? Told her? And what truth lay hidden inside that letter, waiting to shatter everything? The letter, the lie, and the man in the coat, the air inside the diner thickened like steam rising from boiling water. Claire could barely hear the rain anymore. All her focus narrowed to the man who had just entered, his coat dripping on the old tile floor, his stare fixed not on her, but on Keanu. He didn't look like a stranger who had walked in for a hot coffee. No. His eyes were sharp, searching, filled with a history that made Claire's skin crawl. There was recognition there. And more than that, resentment. Something deep and unfinished. Keanu didn't move. He stayed seated, calm, but Claire saw the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers curled around the edge of the table. The quiet man who had just shared a vulnerable part of himself was gone. Now he looked like someone waiting for a storm to hit. "Do I know you?" Keanu asked softly. The man stepped forward, water trailing behind him. His voice cracked like dry branches. "You should. 20 years ago you left someone behind, and now I'm here to settle it." Claire stood up, instinctively moving in front of Keanu, though she didn't understand why. The envelope from her mother was still in her hand, slightly bent from the tension in her grip. She could feel the weight of the unopened words pressing into her palm like something alive. "Sir," she said carefully, "maybe you should sit down. This is a diner, not a place for—" "You have no idea who he really is," the man snapped, cutting her off. "And if he knew who I was, he'd be apologizing by now." Keanu remained quiet, his eyes narrowed in deep thought. Finally, he said something that sent a chill down Claire's back. "Did Amelia send you?" The man laughed bitterly. "No. She wouldn't even speak to me at the end." Claire turned sharply. "You knew my mom?" He looked at her for the first time then, and suddenly the anger in his face cracked. Behind it, Claire saw something unexpected. Grief. "You're Claire," he said, softer now. "You really are her daughter." She nodded slowly, unsure if that fact comforted or frightened him. He stepped back slightly, as if the truth of it all had knocked the wind out of him. "She talked about you. Said she hoped you'd never meet someone like me." Claire's voice trembled. "Who are you?" The man looked at Keanu again. "I was her husband, before the world broke both of us." The silence that followed was painful. Claire's hands gripped the envelope like it might fly away. "You were my father?" He nodded once. No emotion. Just a tired man with too many ghosts behind his eyes. "She told me he left," Claire whispered, to Keanu, confused and hurt. "She said he disappeared." "I did," the man said. "But not because I didn't care." Claire wanted to scream, cry. She didn't even know this man. He felt like a trespasser in a memory she had tried so hard to protect. "She died alone," Claire said bitterly. "If you cared, where were you?" He lowered his head. "I was in prison." The word slammed into her like a slap. Keanu finally stood. Not in anger, but in quiet resolve. "What happened between you two was yours. But Amelia saved my life. And Claire deserves to hear what her mother wanted to say. Not what you think. She should hear," he nodded toward the envelope. "Go on, Claire." Claire stared down at it, the name written in soft, familiar handwriting. It looked so fragile now, yet it pulsed in her hand with the power to unravel everything she thought she knew. She sat slowly, unfolded it with trembling fingers. The paper. Inside was thin and old, and the ink had faded just slightly, but every word was still legible. She began to read. "My dearest Claire, if you are reading this, then life has brought you to someone I once knew, someone I cared about deeply. His name is Keanu. I met him when he was broken, and maybe by the time you find him, you'll understand what that looks like too. I want to tell you something no one else could ever explain. Not your father, not even Keanu." Claire glanced up, heart racing. "You were born into love, but also into chaos. Your father and I were once deeply in love, but addiction destroyed the man he was. I stayed longer than I should have, hoping he'd change. And when he didn't, I made the hardest choice of my life. I left. I left to save you. The tears came, freely now. Claire kept reading, her voice a whisper no one else could hear. I was alone, scared, and unsure if I'd done the right thing. Then Keanu appeared like a shadow in the storm. And for a few days, he brought warmth back into a house that had gone cold. He reminded me that kindness could exist, even when you had nothing to give. But here's the truth, no one else can tell you. I never stopped loving your father, not the broken man he became, but the one he used to be, the one who played guitar in the kitchen and danced with you in his arms when you were too small to remember. He made terrible mistakes, unforgivable ones, but I forgave him. Because in forgiving him, I freed myself. If he ever finds you, Claire, do not carry my pain. Let it go. Love is never perfect, but it is still worth the risk. And if Keanu is with you, tell him thank you. Tell him he saved me, too. With all my heart. Mom Claire sat frozen. The letter hung in the air like a prayer. The room around her blurred. All the hurt, the questions, the holes in her childhood. It all suddenly made sense. Not clean sense, not easy, but real. She looked up at Keanu. His eyes were glossy now, filled with the weight of memory. Then she turned to the man, her father. He wasn't crying. He just looked smaller now, like a man who had lost everything and didn't know how to ask for it back. Claire stood up slowly. She folded the letter with care, placed it inside her apron pocket, and walked past both of them. She stood at the diner window, watching the rain. The world outside looked the same, but nothing inside her was untouched. She needed air, time, space. Then came the soft sound of a chair being pushed back. I should go, her father said, voice low. Claire didn't turn around. She just said, I'm not ready. He nodded, even though she couldn't see it. And with heavy steps he left. Only Keanu remained now. You okay? He asked gently. Claire wiped her face with her sleeve and finally turned to him. No, she whispered. But I will be. Keanu gave her a small, understanding smile. You're stronger than you know. Then, just when the weight seemed unbearable, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then frowned. What is it? Claire asked. He turned the screen to show her. It was a photo sent to his phone. Grainy, but clear enough. A photo of Claire, taken from outside the diner window, and the message beneath it read, You weren't supposed to come back. Claire's breath caught in her throat. Someone was watching them. Someone who didn't want the past uncovered. Shadows from the window. The photo on Keanu's phone didn't make sense at first. It was too recent, too precise. Claire's face was captured through the diner's rain-slicked glass, mid-turn. Her expression lost in thought, unreadable. But someone had stood out there in the storm, taken it, and sent it directly to Keanu. Without a name, without context, just a sentence that felt more like a warning than a message. You weren't supposed to come back. Those 7 words crawled into Claire's chest like frost and settled there. She looked out the window again, searching the gray street, the puddles, the shifting shadows under the street lamps. But there was no one. No movement, no car pulling away. Only the rhythmic fall of the rain. Who would send that? She asked, her voice tight. Keanu didn't answer immediately. His eyes were still fixed on the message, like he was digging through memories for a connection he hadn't made yet. He tapped the screen, tried to trace the number. Unknown. Of course. I don't know, he said. But someone's watching. And they knew your mother. Maybe better than either of us. Claire crossed her arms tightly, suddenly cold. Her mother's letter was still heavy in her pocket, the paper now folded but burning with the truth it carried. And yet even that truth, powerful as it was, now felt like a piece of a larger puzzle. Something still didn't fit. Keanu stepped closer to the window. He didn't look afraid. Not exactly. But his shoulders had stiffened and his calm presence had turned sharper, more alert. "There's something you're not telling me," Claire said softly. He looked at her, his face unreadable. "I didn't want to bring you into something dangerous, but I already am," she said. "Aren't I?" He nodded, just once. Claire sat down slowly in the booth again, pressing her hands together to stop their shaking. "What is it, Keanu? What does this have to do with my mom?" He slid into the seat across from her. Outside, the rain softened, but inside, tension held its grip. "After I left her house all those years ago," he began, "I couldn't stop thinking about her. She was the first person in years who didn't ask me to prove anything, who didn't care about who I had been or who I would become, just human kindness." He paused. "But 2 years later, long after I'd started building a career, I got a letter." Claire leaned forward. "From her?" Keanu nodded. She didn't say much. Just that she needed to disappear. That she was in danger. And that, if anyone ever came asking about her, I should never tell them where she'd been. Claire's breath caught. "What danger?" she whispered. Keanu looked down, voice quieter now. She didn't say, but she included one strange thing, a name I'd never heard before, written on a slip of paper, a single name, Lysander. "Lysander?" Claire repeated. "What is that?" "A person." "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe something else. I've searched it for years. Nothing concrete ever came up. No files, no news, just shadows." Claire sat back, mind spinning. "But if someone's watching us now, maybe that name has meaning. Maybe it was never forgotten." Keanu nodded again. "And maybe they think we've found something they want to stay hidden." She reached into her apron and slowly pulled out the envelope again. The letter was done, but maybe there was more. She opened it, checked the folds, and sure enough, something else was inside. A second slip of paper, thin and brittle. On it, in her mother's handwriting, were just a few numbers. Coordinates. Claire stared at them. "What is this?" "A location," Keanu said. "Latitude and longitude." She looked at him. "You think she left us a trail?" "I think," he said carefully, "she wanted someone to know, just not until it was safe." "And is it safe now?" Claire asked. Keanu looked back at the phone screen, the photo, the message. "No," he said. "Not even close." They sat in silence for a moment, the truth settling between them. Then Claire took a breath and stood. "I want to go," she said. "I want to find out what she left there, even if it's dangerous." Keanu studied her for a long moment. Then, with a quiet nod, he stood as well. "Okay. Then we go together." They drove into the night in Keanu's rented SUV, the diner lights shrinking in the rearview mirror until they were just another glow swallowed by fog. The coordinates led them north, far from the city, past the suburbs, into the woods. The road, narrowed, cracked, turned to gravel. Trees grew thick on either side, and the silence between them deepened. Claire looked out the window, watching shadows move between trees, branches like reaching fingers, the world outside untouched by time. "Do you ever think you were meant to find her?" Claire asked. Keanu kept his eyes on the road. "Sometimes. Sometimes I think I was just lucky, and sometimes I think she found me." The GPS beeped as they neared the final location. There was no sign, no lights, only a thin dirt path leading into the forest. They parked and stepped out, the cold air biting against their skin. Claire clutched the note in her coat pocket. "We're really doing this?" "We're already here," he said softly. They followed the trail, boots crunching on dead leaves. Birds had gone silent. The world felt like it was holding its breath. Then Claire saw it. An old shack. Wooden, small, hidden behind vines and brush. It looked abandoned, forgotten. But as they stepped closer, they saw the lock on the door was new. Someone had been here. Recently. Keanu held out a hand, stopping her. He bent down, studying the ground. Footprints, he whispered. Fresh. Claire's heart pounded. Then they heard it. A sound behind them. Branches snapping. They turned. Too late. A voice spoke from the darkness. Step away from the door. A figure emerged from the trees, dressed in black, face half covered. Not her father. Not anyone they knew. But armed. Deliberate. Keanu stepped. In front of Claire. Who are you? He asked. The man didn't answer. He raised something small. Not a gun. A device. Glowing softly in the dark. What she left in there, he said, isn't for you, and it was never meant to be found. Claire's voice shook. You knew my mother. The man hesitated. Then, with a strange softness, he said, we all did. She wasn't just your mother. She was one of us. Before Claire could ask what that meant, the man raised the device, and the shack behind them exploded in flames. The blast knocked them off their feet. Heat roared through the night. Fire lit the trees in bursts of orange and smoke. Claire coughed, scrambled backward, dazed. Keanu pulled her up, shielding her from the embers. The man had vanished. The shack, her mother's final secret, was gone. Claire stood frozen, the fire reflected in her eyes. What had her mother been hiding, and why? Were people still willing to kill to keep it buried? The name beneath the ashes. The fire burned deep into the bones of the forest. The shack crumbled in a slow, collapsing groan as black smoke coiled into the sky, blotting out the moonlight. Claire stood in silence, her face streaked with ash, her eyes reflecting the flames. It felt like something sacred had been lost. Not just the shack, but everything it might have contained. Answers, memories, her mother's last whisper. Keanu stood beside her, his clothes singed at the edges. He hadn't said a word since pulling her from the blast. The silence between them wasn't fear. It was grief, pure and raw. They had come for truth, and now that truth had been stolen, burned into ash by a faceless man with a glowing device, and a warning that had sounded too much like a threat. Claire finally spoke, her voice low and rough. Why would someone destroy it? If it was nothing, they would have let us open the door. Keanu nodded slowly. Your mother was hiding something, not just from her past, something bigger, something she knew would outlive her. They walked, back to the car through the blackened trail, their boots now soaked in mud and soot. The fire still crackled behind them, but the sound had faded into the night. Claire's hands trembled as she opened the car door, not from the cold, but from the realization that the world she thought she lived in had a second layer, a layer built from secrets. Once inside, Keanu pulled out his phone again. He scrolled, searching, thinking, then stopped. He turned the screen, toward her. I didn't say this earlier because I wasn't sure, he said, but the name your mom left me, Lysander. I've heard it once before. Only once. Claire leaned in. Years ago, he said, a journalist sent me an anonymous file. I thought it was junk, conspiracy stuff. He claimed there was a hidden group, not part of any government, not recorded in any public archives. They operated in shadows, across borders, above laws. They called themselves the Lysander Directive. Claire blinked. What were they? According to the file, Keanu said, they were protectors, or manipulators. Depends who you ask. They identified people, not just powerful people, but people with potential. Sometimes they helped them. Sometimes they made them disappear. A chill settled in Claire's spine. And my mother was one of them? Maybe once, he said. But if she left that life and then hid you, it means something went wrong. And now they're tying up loose ends. She turned away, gripping the door handle. But why now? Why after all these years? Keanu hesitated before answering. Maybe because she passed. Maybe she had a clock running, and when time ran out, she triggered something, information, evidence, something hidden that's waking people up. They drove in silence for miles, city lights slowly creeping back into the sky. But Claire couldn't shake the feeling that they were no longer just trying to understand her mother's past. They were now part of something they didn't choose. Back in the city, Keanu made a quiet call while Claire sat by the window of a tiny roadside motel. The TV buzzed faintly in the background, but she wasn't listening. She was watching the faces of strangers outside, wondering if any of them were watching her too. When Keanu returned, his face was different, more focused, determined. "I have a contact," he said. "A woman named Anna. She used to work in private intelligence. If anyone knows anything about the Lysander directive, she will." She agreed to meet. "Can we trust her?" Claire asked. "Not completely," he said. "But she owes me. And she's smart. If we don't go now, she'll vanish." They met Anna in an abandoned train station on the edge of the city. Claire expected someone tough, intimidating, maybe dressed in all black. But Anna was small, quiet, with a long coat and soft voice. Her eyes, though, they missed nothing. "I thought you'd stay out of all this," Anna said to Keanu. "You were smart once." "Things changed," he replied. "I found Amelia's daughter." Anna looked at Claire and frowned. "She shouldn't be here." "I am here," Claire said, "and I'm not leaving." Anna studied her a moment longer. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a flash drive. "What's on it?" Keanu asked. "Pieces of the Lysander structure," Anna said. "Names, meeting places, dead codes. Most of it's old. But if your girl's mother was part of this, there's a chance she left her fingerprints somewhere in here." Claire took the drive carefully, holding it like it was made of glass. Anna turned to leave but stopped. "You need to understand something," she said. "Lysander doesn't forget. They don't forgive. If she left them, she didn't just run. She must have done something big, something they buried. And now you're digging." "What should we do?" Claire asked. Anna gave her a long look. "Either you run faster than they can follow, or you make them afraid to chase you. Then..." She disappeared into the tunnels. Back at the motel, Claire sat cross-legged on the bed while Keanu loaded the flash drive into his laptop. The files were encrypted, buried under layers of code. But one folder stood out, named only with a date. March 17th, 2005. "That's the year she wrote the letter," Claire whispered. They clicked it open. Inside were photos, documents, and one video file. They hesitated, then played it. The screen flickered to life. A room. Sterile, white walls, surveillance footage. A woman entered the frame. Claire gasped. It was her mother, younger, sharper, wearing a black blazer and a calm, unreadable face. She spoke to someone off camera, her voice clear, measured. "I can't do this anymore. It's gone too far. This isn't protection, it's control, and I won't be part of it." The footage jumped. "If anything happens to me, if they come for my daughter, know this. The key is in the name. The name they all feared, the one they erased." The video cut to static. No end, no explanation, just silence. Claire sat frozen. "What name?" Keanu clicked through the documents. Nothing obvious. But in the last file, a scanned page, half-burned, nearly unreadable. There was a phrase scrawled in red ink. "The girl carries the name. It's hidden in plain sight." Claire's blood ran cold. What does that mean?" she whispered. Keanu looked at her, then slowly turned toward the photo from the diner, the one taken of Claire through the window. He zoomed in, and there, barely visible, etched into the necklace she always wore, the one her mother had given her on her 15th birthday, were 2 tiny letters, while Claire touched it instinctively. "What if it's not just jewelry?" Keanu said. "What if it's the key?" Before she could answer, the motel lights flickered, then went dark. Keanu stood, tense. "They're here," he whispered. A car screeched outside. Voices. Boots. Claire clutched the necklace tight as the door rattled from the outside, and from the hallway, a voice called out, "Give us the girl, and we won't burn everything else." The name that broke the silence, the motel door shook again, harder this time, each thud echoing through Claire's chest like a drum of war. Outside, muffled voices barked orders, calm but forceful, the kind of calm that only came from people who had done this before. Claire gripped the necklace tight, her fingers shaking around the tiny chain. The initials etched into it, A.L., felt hotter now, like the truth was burning its way to the surface. Keanu stood near the window, quiet, eyes scanning the shadows outside. He looked composed, but Claire could see it in the way his jaw clenched, the way his breath slowed. He was calculating, not if they could escape, but how. He turned to her, voice low. "You need to go out the back. I'll stall them." Claire's eyes widened. "No, I'm not leaving you here." "You're not," he said gently. "You're finishing what your mother started." Then he reached into his backpack and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. Her mother's old journal, protected, hidden, waiting. "I didn't show you." "This earlier," he said, handing it to her. "I was trying to keep you from being overwhelmed. But now, there's no more time." Claire opened it. Pages yellowed with age. Her mother's handwriting, soft and deliberate, filled every inch. It wasn't just a diary. It was a record. Names, symbols, hidden notes scribbled into the margins. And one phrase repeated, always in red. "Althea lives." Claire's heart stopped. "A.L.," she whispered. "It's not just initials." Keanu nodded. "It's her name. Your mother's name before she ran, Althea Lysander. She wasn't just part of the directive. She was their founder." Outside, someone shouted, "Final warning!" But Claire didn't move. Her thoughts raced. Her mother had changed her identity, hidden who she was, and hidden Claire too, the girl who carried the name. Althea lives. Not as a memory, but in her blood, in Claire. "They're not here to destroy evidence," Keanu said. "They're here to erase the last living piece of her." Claire's voice cracked. "Me." The journal's last page wasn't filled with words. It held a photo. Her mother, younger, holding a baby in her arms. Claire. And behind them, barely visible, was the symbol from the journal's cover, a circle split into 3 paths. The mark of the directive, beneath the photo, a handwritten message. "If they come for you, don't run. Speak the name. It will stop them." The door burst open. 3 figures entered, dressed in black, faces covered, weapons raised. Keanu stood. Between them and Claire, hands out, calm but firm. "She doesn't know anything," he said. One of the masked figures stepped forward, taller than the others. He raised a device, small, square, glowing blue. The same kind used to detonate the— "Shaq, step aside," he ordered. Claire felt her breath hitch. Her mother's words rang in her head like a bell. "Don't run. Speak the name." She stepped out from behind Keanu. The man raised the device higher. "You're making a mistake," Keanu said. "The mistake," the man replied, "was letting the Lysander name survive." Claire took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Althea lives," she said. Everything stopped. The man froze. The other 2 stepped back, uncertain. "What did you say?" the leader asked. Claire repeated louder this time. Althea lives. For a second, there was nothing but silence. Then the man lowered the device. His voice wavered now. Who told you that? Claire looked him in the eye. My mother. She was Althea, and I'm her daughter. He stared at her like she was a ghost. Then slowly he removed his mask. His face was lined with age, hair flecked with grey, but his eyes were sharp. You shouldn't exist, he whispered. We were told she didn't have a child. Claire held the journal in front of her. She knew you'd come, and she knew you'd be afraid of the truth. He looked at the journal, and something inside him broke. Not anger, not hate, something deeper. Guilt, maybe. Or loss. She was right, he said almost to himself. You have no idea what she built. The directive started as protection, but it became something else. Dangerous, powerful. And when she tried to stop it, they turned on her. I was part of that decision. Keanu stepped closer. Then help fix it. The man didn't move for a long time. Then he looked at the others, gave a single nod. They lowered their weapons. You need to leave, he said. They'll come again. Not. Everyone will stop at a name. 2 days later, Claire and Keanu sat at the edge of a quiet park, sunlight breaking through the clouds. The journal lay open between them, its pages no longer symbols of fear, but a map, a guide to something greater. What now? Claire asked. Keanu smiled softly. Whatever you choose, you could disappear, change your name, live quietly. Claire shook her head. That's what she did. That's how she protected me. But I don't want to hide. He nodded. Then we rebuild. Not the directive, Claire said. Something better. She looked down at the final page of the journal. Below her mother's handwriting, Claire had written her own message. Althea lives. And she's not afraid anymore. The wind carried the words like a promise, and somewhere far from the city, in rooms filled with shadows and names whispered, in code, the message would spread. The girl lives. The name returns. The silence is broken. Claire looked at Keanu, then at the sky. Her mother had saved a stranger, and in return, he had saved her daughter. Now it was Claire's turn to choose what came next, and this time no one would decide for her.